Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to PowerPoint number 15, Internet Searches. Performing better Google searches and getting the information you want. Now, the reason I've included this for my 8th grade students is because that I've found that the typical middle school student hasn't quite figured out how to properly and efficiently use Google searches and the Google search tool. Additionally, as you move through business and maybe look at entrepreneurship, so on and so forth, there might be some features in Google that you decide you want to use as a business, such as Google Analytics, so on and so forth. And I might even provide some examples for that in my in-class area. So, by the way, that noise you hear, and a little bit of rain coming down. All right, so here we go. Internet searches. Now, I have found that the typical middle school student, if they want to get the information on the history of George Washington who was our first president, they will literally type in, what is the history of the United States first president, George Washington? Enter. Well, that gives Google a lot of things to choose from, and you might not find the information you need, so there might be a more efficient way to look for the information, right? Or they'll ask Google, what does 2 plus 2 equal? And they'll type that whole thing out and press the enter key, right? And while they may find the results, there might be more efficient results that are out there. Additionally, there are some tools, tips, and tricks built into Google to help find relevant information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick time out here with me speaking and me on the camera. I'm going to let a video take over, and then I'll come back and we'll explore some finer details of the Google search tool.
This company's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're taking a look at the history of Google. PhD students Larry Page and Sergey Brin began Google as a research project in January 1996 while attending California's Stanford University. By developing a technology called PageRank, they were able to create a search engine that could estimate a website's importance based on its incoming links. Initially nicknamed Backrub, the Google.com domain name was registered on September 15, 1997, and the company incorporated on September 4th the next year. Its initial public offering came on August 19, 2004, though the founders and then CEO Eric Schmidt remained in control. As a result of the IPO, many of the company's employees became paper millionaires, and this led some to wonder if Google would live by its "Don't be evil" motto. Like many Silicon Valley startups, Google was first based out of a garage. Today, its corporate headquarters is in Mountain View, California. Known as the Googleplex, the offices perpetuate an informal and casual atmosphere. Employees are encouraged to spend 20% of their time on personal interests, and this has led to the creation of services such as Google News and AdSense. Google's most popular service is its online search engine, Google Search. Users employ this tool to look for information by typing keywords into the search bar. The incoming results come from the billions of web pages the company indexes, and the order of the results is partly based on PageRank. Google has expanded its search results and paid listings onto other websites through AdSense. AdSense and AdWords form the engine of Google's multi-billion-dollar revenue machine. Google also offers marketers a free service called Google Analytics, which produces website visitor statistics. Thanks to its innovations, the company is now one of the biggest brokers in the online advertising market. Google Search has branched out to offer other types of services in many different languages as well. These include Google Image Search, Google Video Search, Google Maps, and Google Translate. Google has also released several internet productivity tools. The most well-known of these is Gmail. Gmail was the first free webmail service to maintain emails from the same exchange collectively in a common thread. Gmail was also the first email service to offer users 1 gigabyte of free storage. Today, Gmail offers practically limitless storage for a small fee. Another web productivity tool is Google Docs. This service is comprised of software that allows users to create documents, spreadsheets, and presentations and store them in the cloud. These can be composed and edited via a web browser and can also be accessed by more than one user. This software is considered by some as an attack on one of Microsoft's core businesses. Google has also worked on other projects. Notable ones include the open-source web browser Google Chrome, the mobile operating system Android, and the social networking service Google+. To bolster their mobile efforts, Google also acquired Motorola Mobility in 2011. In addition, Google has acquired other businesses as launching pads for new services. For example, Keyhole Inc. was developed into Google Earth for its 3D view of our planet, and Grand Central was developed into Google Voice. Two of the company's biggest successes through acquisitions have been AdWords through the Applied Semantics deal and the popular video sharing website YouTube. Google also has a charitable arm called Google.org. This not-for-profit organization's main initiatives revolve around developing renewable energy, improving access to health services, and reducing worldwide poverty. Throughout the years of its existence, Google has not been without its detractors. One recurring issue has been privacy. These concerns range from the Gmail program's automatic email scanning to create targeted advertising to the data and image collection of Google Street View. The Google search engine has been criticized for its censorship of search results, and even the company headquarters has been accused of unnecessary energy use. While the company is now facing threats from Apple and Facebook, Google is sure to remain a dominant force in the global internet industry.
All right, hope you found that informing. I know they use a lot of big words in there, but I think you can kind of see how Google has changed the overall structure of businesses, and how maybe doing something good might have some, criticism from certain individuals, so on and so forth, right? And how technology can kind of be changed to fit what the public is looking for. So what we're going to look at in our big ideas from this section are how can Google be used more efficiently and accurately. As I said before, there are different ways to search things, and there are different tools that Google uses for the Google search, right? And of course, we have other tools that can be used as well for productivity. And which search software and technology helped make Google a leader in internet technology. If you're paying attention to the video, you kind of heard some of those ideas rolled around in there. So let's get started here. Our essential questions. To tie in with state standards 0101 for business leadership, which technologies did Google implement to supply users with quick and relevant results? We're going to look at that. We're going to look at 0801. How can I use Google and other internet search engines to find information I need for business, management, administration, entrepreneurship, and leadership? Okay. And we're also going to look at 0501 and 1001. How can I perform how can I perform information searches more efficiently for personal and business related tasks? All right, so let's get started here. All right, so browsing, the very, very beginning of internet browsing, right? All started out when the internet was still in its infancy stages. I say infancy stages because, believe it or not, the internet's been around since about the early 1970s. It's just been a lot different than what it is right now, right? Additionally, PC computing or personal computing really didn't come around to homes until the 1980s. Okay, you can do a whole history on it. And then the internet really wasn't used unless you were a super nerd, okay, and knew a lot about programming, and you wanted to gain access to different colleges, universities that were implying internet technology, maybe high-end banks, so on and so forth. Nothing like we use today with all the fancy graphics, charts, videos, and all that kind of good stuff, right? Because it just wasn't there. So the very first browser, okay, was called Mosaic. Now let me explain what a browser is, and maybe you can see how Mosaic is important. A browser allows users to get and see the information on the internet, okay? It presents the information from the internet, okay? It doesn't allow us to search for things. That is a tool that's built in, okay? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to go shopping for something, okay? And you're like, you know what? I don't know what I'm wanting. I just want to go shopping, all right? So you go to a store or the mall or a fancy place somewhere in Jacksonville, and you just start kind of looking around, all right? You are browsing, all right? You're not looking for anything specifically. You may not even spend money. You just go in, right? You may go to a clothing store and be like, let me see what they have in there, right? You are browsing, all right? You might be attracted by the belts, or the pants or the shirts or the shoes, right? Or the hats and the accessories, right? Or you might be attracted by maybe some games that are in a window somewhere, right? But you're not searching for that specifically. You're being presented the information, okay? All right, so browsers, the very, very first mainstream browser was called Mosaic, okay? And Mosaic would later turn into Netscape, which was a very, very popular browser in the 90s, which would later be purchased by Mozilla and turned into Firefox. And Firefox is still a widely used browser today. In fact, just recently, Mozilla got some money ingested from Google, okay? In fact, a lot of the new Firefox browsing stuff, or at least on this thing, right, the smartphones, the smart apps, looks a lot like Google Chrome, okay? Now, there are other internet browsers besides Google Chrome and Firefox, okay? Chrome is a browser, right? It allows you to surf the information online. I'll tell you how Chrome is kind of unique here in just a minute, right? There was Microsoft Explorer, which became Microsoft Edge, okay? You had Apple's Safari, and of course, Google Chrome was unique because in the early days, you had to go to individual internet sites to do a search. I'll give you an example. Let's say I was using Netscape in the 90s, okay? If I wanted to do a search on Google, I would have to go to www.google.com and then type in my search, right? And then later on, the various browsers started including those search tools in the browser menu, or that search line, or that browser address bar on the top of the screen, okay? And that's how Google Chrome really became really, really popular. And of course, it's kind of efficient as well, right? And it wasn't until later that the browser started integrating and implementing various internet searches, right? Now, browsers started adding various tools to help users out, and that included things like bookmarks, right? So bookmarks allowed users to quickly, hey, that page looks really interesting, let me bookmark that, come back to later. Or, hey, I use this a lot, let me bookmark that so I can just go to bookmarks and go to that particular site, right? Quick, easy access to all those sites. Now, that's different than history, right? Now, history says, okay, on this date, you accessed these sites, or like 2 weeks ago, you saw these sites. Now, which one sounds more efficient to use, bookmarks or history? If you're going bookmarks, you answered right. Later, they added tabs, so you could actually add different tabs. And tabs were helpful, but really didn't work really well until you had a faster internet connection, so you're able to transmit the data a little bit faster. And then, of course, nowadays we have various apps, add-ons, and extensions that you could add on to the various browsers. So that's how those have changed over the years, all right? All right, looking forward to various search engines. Now, search engines are different than browsers, all right? You would once, at one time, like in the 90s, all right, when Mr. C wanted to go on the internet, I would have to dial out on my modem, connect to what they call an internet service provider. Once I had that internet service provider connected and the exchange was done, I would have to launch my browser, okay? And then that browser would present the information from the internet. If I wanted to search for something, I would have to go to a specific site. I would have to go to, this is before Google existed, all right? I would have to go to, say, webcrawler.com and do my search, or InfoSeek, or Yahoo, or one of those type companies, right? So here we go. Here is the history of search engines. The very, very first search engine was called WebCrawler, okay? And WebCrawler was unique and advanced for its time. Of course, later came InfoSeek, all right? And InfoSeek was one I preferred using in the mid-90s because it seemed to be a little bit more accurate than WebCrawler. And of course, Yahoo came around. And we're going to watch a video in class a little bit later on how Yahoo gave you good results, but it wasn't always correct, all right? And sometimes you would search for something and you'd get results that weren't even close to what you were looking for, all right? By 1996, Ask Jeeves had come around where you could actually ask the Google search engine a question. I'm sorry, the search engine, not Google search, but you could ask Jeeves a whole question and it would find all the results for you, right? So it would figure out the difference between who and what and how and try to give you those results based off of the question you asked, right? It would later become ask.com, all right? MSN search was launched in 1998. MSN stands for Microsoft Network, and that would later become Bing, or labeled and rebranded as Bing, right? Now, during the 90s, America Online was a popular internet provider, and then AOL Search was launched in 2005, and then DuckDuckGo is a very popular website for those who prefer not using Google, because they have, a different set of algorithms they use and so on and so forth. They don't do as much tracking on the individual user. That was launched in 2008 as a response to those who didn't like using, say, Google and Google services and Google searches for whatever reason, right? So again, the big takeaway here is browsers present information, right? Searches give you the information of what you're looking for, okay? So I go to a store, I'm browsing. Now I go to a store and I'm looking for eggs, then I'm searching out eggs, and I'm only going to look for eggs, okay? I hope that makes sense. All right. So, currently, the standard in in search engines is Google. Now, Google was launched in 1998, right? And of course, they had been developed, but it was officially launched in 1998. And I remember the launch because I was in high school at the time, and they were talking about how Google was going to change the world. And after using it, I was like, yeah, this is pretty accurate. This is a lot better than the stuff I used in the mid-90s, just 4 years prior, because the answers and the feedback were relevant to what I was looking for. And I tried to trick it a couple times, and it found the answers. So it was really, really a good search engine, right? It is the current standard. So even almost 22 years later, right, Google is the current standard. Now, why is it the current standard? It's because it uses a text-based search, all right? It means it is searching the text based off of what you type in, and it looks for all of the words you type in unless you tell it to look for something else, right? So if I were to look up the words, who was the first president of the United States, it's going to look up all the search engines that says who and was, or who or was, right? The also include the word first. So it's going to look for who is the were first. You get the idea? It's going to look for all of those terms, okay? Because it's a text-based search. It's searching out the internet for those responses. Now, because the internet was growing, all right, in the 2000s and what have you, it was really booming, really expanding, okay, called the internet boom, okay. Web cache became really, really popular, and what web cache was a essentially a copying of all the text from the internet. Sometimes it's called HTTP cache, or hyper text thread protocol cache, okay? And what it essentially did was Google had a whole bunch of servers and purchased a whole bunch of servers to copy all the text from the internet, all right? Now think about that, okay? If Google is a text-based search, okay, and you now have on all your servers all the text from the internet, okay, how fast is that going to be to give your users quick and relevant results? Think about that. You just ask the servers, and then the servers direct you, right? That sounds efficient, right? A lot faster, okay? Well, there was a problem with that, and that led to Fields versus Google, okay? Fields versus Google. And this was a lawsuit that said against Fields, and Fields was essentially representing the rest of the population of the United States, and he sued Google, and they sued Google and said, look, Google, you copied my information and didn't ask for permission, all right? Think about what that means. Aren't we supposed to cite our text and so on and so forth, right? And what basically happened was it went all the way to the Supreme Court, okay? And the Supreme Court finally decided, they said, look, all right, everybody's getting credit, okay? They are not directly, all right, profiting from this, you know? And again, copyright law doesn't include profit or not, all right? It just says, can you use it and use it without expectation, right? And they did require that Google says, hey, if you don't want your information to be copied on these text-based servers, then you need to put some code in, okay? And so they gave users or computer users or designers or web designers the option not to have their text copied, okay? And that was fine, okay? And in fact, if you're in class, I'm going to show you how to look for that web cache in the results themselves, all right? But yeah, Fields versus Google ended up changing the way that web and web design was done and the way that the internet is used, right? Based off of various applications of copyright law, okay? Now, PageRank was something that they mentioned in this video. What PageRank does is it says, hey, or at least did this initially, right? Hey, when people looked up these terms, they found this internet site to be really, really useful, along with this site and this site and this site. But this website here on top was the most useful based off of what you're searching for. Would you like to connect to it? Okay. And basically that's what PageRank does. It basically threaded and counted the likes, uses, or the threads to that based off of like searches. Okay. In fact, a lot of Google, it still uses PageRank in their current algorithms. All right. So really, really useful and helpful tool. Okay. It uses prior searches, prior clicks, and other uses for that. All right. So PageRank, a really, really awesome application. And of course, you have various search tools within Google as well, such as looking for documents presented in the last time period or a certain time period, so on and so forth. So that brings me to the end of this section. Go ahead and answer these questions found in Activity 1. And I think we covered these in detail. We sure did. And we should be good to go. Go ahead and check out video number 2 in the next lesson.